Ben Stewart. We were just talking about your what are you just recording narration? What was it?
Yeah, it was actually I'm doing a solo cast. So I put stuff out on Spotify, and oftentimes I've been very late on that because I try to make video things in which I just rip the audio and put it on Spotify. So lately I've just been doing audio so I can get things out at a quicker clip.
Yeah, there's some audio feedback for sure. There's like a when you talk, it goes like in the background of the sound. So we're kind of troubleshooting it in real time.
Yeah, I wonder if that is. So I undid reduce mic.
That's that hissing buzz I hear now again.
Okay, now turn that off.
That's better.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that could be. It's automatically adjust mic volume here. Now it's stable.
That sounds better.
Okay.
What have you been up to, man?
A lot of film working. This seat that you see me in, I barely move from it. So I'm always in the latest evolutionary pose, which is the seated posture hunched over a computer.
Yeah, how do you counteract the bending, the sitting and all that? How do you counteract it evolutionarily?
Just like a lot of movement. I mean, I go out and I got kids, so I jump on the trampoline a lot. I try to walk a lot. That's a corrective exercise in and of itself. I do a lot of movement. You know, sometimes I have kettlebells sitting over here. So sometimes when I'm editing something together, if I have a moment to just watch through it, like hit play, start from the beginning, I'll just get up and I'll swing some kettlebells and, you know, anything I can do to unfurl from the seated posture. Sometimes just stand up and like open my arms and look up to the sky for a while. And just whatever I can do to like unwrap the body, because sitting in seated posture, hunched over a computer, is very much so like the fetal position. So it's interesting that that's becoming like the number one posture people take.
Do you think that people have gone completely psychotic in the modern age, like since the radio or whatever it is? I don't know. Mass formation is this new thing since the radio. I don't know if they ever were really able to do that like globally before.
No, it's definitely part of the hive mind. I mean, you know, when you have technology, aside from all the like individual actors that are, you know, or maybe cohorts that are really trying to use propaganda and coerce people in certain ways, just like Marshall McLuhan, the medium is the message. So like we are very now used to, you know, people travel and they'll put a podcast on 1.5 or even 2x, and they're just downloading information. Never before in human history has that ever been the case. Evolutionarily, we get information very slowly. So it's hard to say, like, it's hard to classify that as psychotic or just like, it's like being on a new drug. Evolutionarily, we're on a new drug. Technology can bring us massive amounts of information. And what we do with it is really according to the infrastructure, like the maturity or lack thereof infrastructure that we have within us to even understand the information, how to place it, how to embody it, how to, you know, behave. And it's homogenizing us. It's become kind of like a hive mind. The things that we busy ourselves with in our mind are largely the things that we are listening to on a regular basis. And then we're also creatures of habit. You know, we're creatures of habit. We listen to the same 2, 3, 4 podcasts, and we'll listen to the same people having conversations over and over and over again. Mass formation, I could see that. I'm just not sure whether to place it in a category called psychosis or not. I just feel like it's a weird drug that we're all on.
Yeah, I don't. When I even say mass formation, I didn't say mass formation psychosis, which is a thing. But like, you can have mass formation intelligence or mass formation love, mass formation solutions. Like you can definitely mass formate for a lot of different purposes. We interviewed Tucker Carlson on Timcast IRL on Monday at Turning Point, and it was awesome. During the conversation, the internet came up, like the power, and I think Tucker was saying that it's evil, or at least intimating. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but it was kind of like the consensus was like, this technology is evil. And I thought, I countered it with like, I think it's neutral. And if you use it for evil, of course, then you'll get evil consequences. But it's kind of like the atom bomb. Like the atom bomb wasn't evil. It was just a neutral technology that if used for evil, it would be, but if used for good, I mean, can you,
Well,
I mean,
you can use, like, if we're getting philosophical with it, you can power many, many homes with it, or you can destroy many lives. It's kind of like fire. You can, burn a house down, or you can warm up a home for a family who's cold. It's the way that you contain that power. And it's the same thing. Like, so the fire that we're talking about now is information, and we're getting information from the internet, and the internet is the engine by which it contains it contains the information, and it channels it in a certain way that can be useful. It's like computers before Windows applications. Most people, it was just nonsense to their eyes. Now it's these neat little icons and user interfaces. So, I mean, I quite agree. The thing with Tucker, I'm not even sure. I mean, what I like about him is he has some very, very deep stances, but when in the clip that I saw Luke post, where you guys started talking about aliens and are these angels and demons and stuff like that, he said, the clip you guys are referring to, I should clarify a little bit. I don't personally know with 100% certitude everything that I'm saying, but I have an inner knowing. And he said it in different words. But I think that word evil is tricky to use, that word. And I hear people using it a lot. I especially hear it on the right, if I'm going to start, making a demarcation. But I hear it on the left just in different words. I hear people on the right saying evil, which is an interesting bucket to throw things in, right? Like, let's just go straight for the jugular. People, say Bill Gates, evil. I get it. I research a lot about him. But to understand what evil is, to understand how to take somebody that you're internet informed on, and we can learn a lot about people we've never met through the internet. But if we're not careful, then we're lumping people that we're only internet informed on into categories of evil. And that term evil, when we bandy it about on the internet, we cause other people who are less educated to simply place people into categories. Because I trust you and you're telling me this person is evil, I'm going to use that trust to partition my viewpoint of that human I'm only internet informed on into a bucket of evil, meaning there is nothing redeeming. If you think of what that word evil means, anything redeeming is also a manipulation to bring you into their evil ploy. And I don't think we are, en masse, I don't think we are wise enough to know what to do with that term evil. And so to say the internet is evil, however he actually said it and however he actually meant it, I like to go more humble with the words and the categories. Like, the internet is changing a lot of things. It's changing a lot of things. But now imagine you ever seen the movie The Sphere?
No, is that Michael Crichton? Sphere?
It might have been,
They
where
find a big sphere underwater.
just think in the movie where they find like this sphere at the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah, it's a Michael Crichton novel they made a movie out of.
Dustin Hoffman, Samuel L. Jackson, Queen Latifah. It was a good flick. And it was basically this technology that anything that you focus your mind and attention and awareness on, whether it be your unconscious fears or your greatest desires, it starts to instantly manifest itself. Imagine that technology available at a time period where the consensus of human intelligence isn't wise enough to know what to do with that, right? We haven't matured enough to know what to do with that. Now imagine that the internet is kind of like lifting the lid off of Pandora's box. It's not just good or bad stuff that's coming out. It's a panoply of, a lot of things that come through it. So what is the internet other than something that is amplifying parts of the human that we scarcely understood or never admitted to ourselves? We know how to talk about who we are and what our desires are, but at the end of the day, do we really know what drives us, what compels us? We can put words to it. If I'm called upon to say, like, oh, what drove you to be a filmmaker? I know what words I could throw onto it right now, but does that mean I really know that those words are fully accurate or complete or coherent? Do I know how it's going to land with other people? For the most part, we don't even really know what we are. So the internet is simply, I think, an accelerant and an amplifier of all the intricate potentialities that humans have to offer.
There's this theory I'm working on right now. So there's this concept of like the multiverse, or that there's infinite universes, and we're within all, like, every choice you make, it leads to another, and like there's all potential outcomes are real, and you're like choosing one outcome. So I think what's happening is, according to Nassim Harameyn's Schwarzschild proton paper, every proton is actually two protons revolving around each other at the speed of light, depositing information into the vacuum of space-time, and then immediately calculating all of the data of all the protons in all of space-time, and then repositing a proton back to you at the speed of light. So you get a localized response from all of the universal data. But what's happening is you're essentially appearing in place at the speed of light in a new position. So every whatever it is, it's less than who knows what the time scale is, but every X amount of time scale, you're appearing in a new position. And so every time you appear in position, you're impacting space-time. And this is why there is a multiverse. Like, every new position that you're in affects the dimension that you are now in. So you're appearing in a new dimension at the speed of light. And so your thoughts are being carried into this new dimension with you. It feels analog. Like, thoughts are like, I am doing well. Like, that takes a while. You're going through many multiverses just by having that thought. But it's like this stable flow is kind of impacting what dimension you end up in. And I think that's why they say thoughts influence reality, and that maybe the internet is enhancing that, or something, is like making that more refined. Because if you go on the internet and make a video and 100 million people see it, like, whoa, my thoughts just really impacted reality at a high frequency, a teleported high frequency. Like, you can hear the sound. That's a high frequency, teleported. And I wonder, what do you think about that? You've done a lot of work into this kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, everything you said in relation to the internet, what's interesting about it is the internet is, it's really just, it's working with how information displays itself at you, not just through, audio vibrations, but, like video, so light. I think I heard that screens send photons to you at a third the speed of light. So it's interesting that this display in front of us comes from ideas from people from across the world, even throughout time. You can like rehash Plotinus and, speak some of those words in a new voice and put it on the internet and impact people. It is really interesting. I mean, like, to me, the many dimensions thing, there's this feeling of cohesion, that every moment leading to the next, there is cohesion, and we have enough awareness to feel like we understand why we made the decisions that we've made that get us to this point that we're at. There's so many different ways. There's the ultra nerdy scientific ways of explaining it. I have a book over here called Initiation into Hermetics by Franz Barden, and it has its own, kind of more alchemical way of explaining it. What's interesting is, like, what that information is really doing is it's informing, and it's informing a form of infrastructure or posture or composure, not just of our body, but also the infrastructure of how our mind has a worldview and operates with a worldview in place. And so it's helping us form our worldview. And the internet is interesting because whereas, I just made this movie for Timcast, Game of Money. And the interesting thing that I did about that was I showed that if we're going to talk about money, let's go all the way back to not even the beginning, but a starting point, which is 12,000 years ago at the beginning of agriculture. Imagine this time period. And I do think that there's more anomalies than how simple I'm going to make this sound. But for the most part, 12,000 years ago, we see Göbekli Tepe, and this is like some of the most original, it's in present-day Turkey. It's some of the most original places where we know agriculture came from. And just think of the agricultural revolution. We're gypsies, we're nomads, we're walking across the face of the earth, with no more than 150 people. That's Dunbar's number. And it really regulated our language. Our language didn't need to be super sophisticated because we know everybody. You know, we like there's 150 people max that we're really traveling in, and we're walking across this magical, mysterious earth that has food and danger and the animals and like the conditions and the elements and things like that. And all of a sudden, the agricultural revolution comes in where we take seeds and we plant it where we want it to be. So dot, 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 we can have more food and we don't have to travel. We just get the seeds, we plant them here, we have a surplus of food. So it changed this whole idea of what money is. Before it was a peace pipe, because why is that valuable? Well, my great, great, great grandfather had it. And we all know why that's important, because we're all in this tribe of 150 or less. Now we're in a city, and people from that tribe who I never would have been living, cohabiting with, people from that tribe, they talk a different language, they have different customs, they don't value this peace pipe. So we don't have a common money. So surplus, a lot of food, that became the new wealth, a lot of wheat. And you go back to the original sex cults and, of Ashtara, they would trade wheat. The farmers would go and hand in wheat for trade to go to make love to these sacred prostitutes. And that was an interchange. That was how you give fealty and also food to your king so he can fund the wars that are going on, that's acquiring more land. But never before did we really share ideas from other cultures. And then you move all the way up to the Middle Ages, where there's now universities starting, and the power of the church is being challenged by logic and pragmatism and people from other cultures that are coming together and like, you know, this whole power behind the church, we need an age of reason. We need an age of enlightenment. We need to understand how science and pragmatism and empirical evidence can build upon a worldview. That happened by today's standards very, very slowly, because ideas weren't mixing a lot in those days. You also had to be literate. How many people were illiterate all the way even up into the 1800s? Now more people are literate, and you can get almost any information you want through the internet alone. So we're in an interesting turning point of just humans living on a planet with technology that can give you ideas, and those ideas can merge with your ideas. And before you know it, you can be a musician or an inventor or a filmmaker or whatever. You couldn't move that quickly into a new career field 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 300 years ago. You had your craft. You knew what life had in store for you because you see all the other farmers around or writers around. So I think we're in an age, and what the internet is doing, whether it's good, bad, neutral, whatever, is it's opening up possibilities for us. And in those possibilities is new territory for our shadow to come out. And as our shadow is coming out, people like Tucker Carlson, can be like, well, this seems evil. He even said the same thing. He was just on Glenn Greenwald, and they were talking about his view on capitalism and, our economic system. And he was just like, I think it's evil. It's a bad system. Maybe he said bad, not evil. It's a bad system because anywhere where you drive around and you have dollar stores popping up, that's like a symbol of you haven't made it far enough. You need to go to the dollar store. And to me, that's just like, yeah, you're using your words to spin it in that way. I can see how you view it in that way. But really, that's what we're doing. We're trying to impact people with the way we view the world through our art, through our voice, through our podcasts, through our movies. And our ideas are impacting people across the planet. And then we get into marketing. And did you use the formula? Dude, if you made that video using this technique or, in the timestamp of a TikTok reel, you could have reached so many more people. It's opening up seemingly infinite possibilities for people to become more than who they ever evolutionarily thought they could ever become. So I think we're living in a weird enlightenment era. And in that enlightenment, what's being illuminated is a lot of our shadow that we never admitted to ourselves. So we can look at it and say, like, that must be evil, when really this is what the human experience, this is what humanity has always been. We just haven't had the opportunity to crack open the shell to see that aspect of our shadow.
Do you think, I agree with that the observation of the darkness of humanity doesn't indicate that the device that you're using to observe it is evil. Like, you're just seeing evil aspects of, and even then, like, the term evil, I thought that we were about to enter an age of nuance where people knew that, like, laying your life on a word is like illiterate. Like these words, yeah, they have meaning, but the meanings shift and change, and depending on the context, they have more or less impact. But like, do you think that as technology is advancing, is it a good idea? There's that word good. Like, what is that? Just another word for God. Like, it's almost the same word with, basically they're like using it like, oh, what's good this time? Whatever the good God says is good. That like, it's best to like jump on the algorithm and just become part of it. Cause like I put in this video is called number 26, Ben Stewart. There's no context because I'm old school. I'm like, fuck it. Yeah. I just want it to be simple. It's about you. But then people are like, yo, if you put some key words in the subject, the algorithm will pick it up. More people will see it. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't know what the conversation is going to be about. I don't want to force it. And I don't like, maybe after the fact, I'll go in and like edit the title. But do you think that it's like good to incite the algorithm to gain popularity or to become like a leading part of this machine transformation?
Yeah, I want to break it back down to the brilliant way you set it up, which is, what does good really mean? So there's the consensus of good that our culture helps us understand, and that's a cohesiveness of collectivity, which is good, whatever that means. You said it along with God. I've even thought, people are like, technology is evil, and it's just like, so like, do you believe in God? And they're like, yeah, absolutely. So is technology and all that is evil outside of the realm of God. So God is evil. God has evil in it, right? If all this is evil, or if all this is God, within that is housed evil. It's not like, God does all the good things, but, like he's completely inept and impotent when it comes to affecting evil. Oh, that's our fault. But I thought we were God, so like really understanding what is good, to understand that like goodness comes in packages. I'm in a relationship, I have my 4th baby on the way. And the interesting part about that is there are a lot of ways that I think I'm doing good as a parent that I realize, oh, that was my overprotectiveness. That's what made me think it was good. I'm protecting them. I'm shielding them from a certain kind of experience that they're inevitably going to live in their life. They're going to come about these problems or these challenges in life. What am I protecting them from? The chance to practice it while you're young? So like, what is good in this scenario? Keep them from touching that hot pan. Let them touch the hot pan. Some people would say like, no, you let them touch it, but you don't let them really hurt themselves. Like, okay, so we're talking about the nuance of good. So in relation to the algorithm that you're talking about, I really think I was going to try and say this earlier, but all this information, none of it is good. The internet, none of it is good. None of it is bad. All of it is potentiality. But what it does is it helps us inform the state of being that we are in right now. I really do believe in the now. I think that was so overplayed and people forgot the nuance of like, oh, be here now. What does that mean? It means as you and I are explaining something, we're not talking about some distant time or space. We're conjuring it in the now with our words for a reason. There's a reason why we're doing it now. So we're not living in the moment that we're talking about. We're conjuring it in the now. So the information that comes through the internet, is it good or is it bad? Well, I can go and listen to Redacted and hear that 1 million migrants from Venezuela or Honduras are pouring over the border. Is that good or is that bad? Well, I'm not there. I'm listening to Redacted here and now. It's informing me of it. And what can I do with that information? What kind of feeling state do I want it to put me in? Pure panic? Do I want it to give me a little bit of alarm? Do I want it to push me into motion? There is no set manual that we are handed down saying these acts are good and these acts are bad. And I'll just say one more thing with my relationship. Love isn't always nice and cushy and gooey and soft and making you feel good and pleasant. Oftentimes, real love is telling the person that you love, you're lying to yourself. You actually are addicted to that screen, or you're lying to yourself. You're actually too afraid to stick up for yourself in this relationship or in this key dynamic. And they don't want to hear it, but you know they need to hear it from somebody that they trust. So you try and say it as best you can, but you're bursting their bubble. That could seem bad. And in fact, there are whole demographics of people that listen to podcasts that strengthen their bubble, not burst it. And we are a species that we, you know, unless you are really, really understanding that struggle is where you mine diamonds. You know, you're not going to get it from laying on the couch and Netflixing and chilling all the time. The struggle, the things that you do that are challenging from day to day, the things that you do that it's like, yeah, I might put 100% in and I'm not sure if I'll succeed. That sounds exciting. I'm going to go do that. Is that good or is that bad? So I think some of the terms that we place on these things, they start to supersede the actual feeling states that they help us conjure. It's more about the feeling state in the here and now, which is why when I'm talking about conspiracy or I'm talking about whatever it might be, what I'm also doing in that moment is conjuring the feeling state of where do I want the audience to be? I want them, like Esoteric Agenda, Kymatica, my first few films, they scared the shit out of some people. But the reason why I started there, but I ended with how powerful human beings are, is because I don't want you to just understand how powerful human beings are. I want you to understand that there's a lot of shadow that needs light shine on it. So, you know I kind of veered from the actual way that you were asking the question. Should I hop on the algorithm? Should I put context to these things? It's really more or less about what are you really trying to accomplish? I'm in this existential part of my life where I'm just like, what am I really fucking doing with my life? You know, like I love what I'm doing. I'm not doubting what I've done, but I may have 4 good decades ahead of me where I can master different crafts and work on different projects and really make an impact. But getting to this existential point, like, what is it that's driving me? Is it still driving me, or am I stuck on autopilot? I think people are questioning the outer appearances a lot more than they're questioning the things within them that are driving them and compelling them into action. The addictions, all the way to the, you know, the glimmery, shiny objects that cause us to chase them. What are we really doing? So what is good? It may feel good to be stuck in a pattern where every day we know what to expect. Yeah, that's safe. Are we here to be safe? I'd rather die at 50 doing something glorious than survive until I'm 90. I don't know. I mean, like, is the algorithm good? I think it's all about how you wield it. You know,
yeah,
I think you're doing a good job with sticking with the simplicities. And even if people are like, dude, you got to do it this way, sometimes doing it the exact opposite way of how culture is doing it is the way to do it, just because it's refreshing, just because it's not like everything else out there.
It's really freaky to be in a comfortable position and to believe like this isn't good. Like this is easy. I'm wealthy and it feels comforting. Like my body is relaxed and my genes are healing. But maybe it's not good. Maybe I'm passively doing damage to society by allowing myself to be here, and I need to go do something harsh that will harm my physics, my physical body, but will actually end up making the system better. And like, so what is good? Is good like getting a really good night's sleep, or is good like being sick in the wilderness, half freezing, you know, with your AR? Like,
It's funny you mentioned being sick, because my whole family is sick right now. And, you know, my wife is also pregnant and she's a go-getter. And I think she got sick to slow her ass down. You know, like she's always on the go. And I think sometimes like we, you know, like, oh shit, I hate being sick. You know, being sick is bad, right? There's that category again. And like, what does that mean? It's trying to get you to gain a little bit of perspective by slowing down. You're on the hamster wheel, you're running, you've caught your second wind, you feel like you could do this for the next 10 years, do this job, do this task, you know, and then all of a sudden something stops you dead in your tracks. And sometimes it's trauma. It's straight up trauma, or somebody close to us dying or leaving us or something like that, to snap us out of, what have I been doing? I've been doing all this for the family, but the very people that I love, I've been neglecting so I could do the thing for them. It's hard to really find, like, what is the good, what is the right thing to do. And I think oftentimes we don't realize it, but we're searching for an external answer to that. What do other people think? What should I be doing? I'm going to read this book. And that's good, because these are all mirrors. But at the end of the day, it's supposed to mirror us so we can reflect upon, what do I really feel like doing? I don't know. That's where I'm kind of at, is like, well, if I weren't to do film and I weren't to do music, if I'm not going to go backwards into those things, what else do I even want to do? And I don't know. And I haven't known for months. And that's agonizing. But knowing that I've experienced this pattern before, I know at some point something's going to congeal, something's going to compel me from within, and I am going to be launched into a certain direction. So is it good for me to try and force that realization to come prematurely, or just sit in the agony of it to learn how to actually, like, breathe through the not knowing?
Do you find that if you're in agony that you will just lay there and breathe, and like, or is the sedentaryism like actually like, because I don't think time is a much of a real thing. I think more it's about motion and like, how are you moving, and like work, like when you're in like psychological agony, do you just work out? Like, that was a text I got from my dad. He's like, if you're really feeling low, just work out. You'll be amazed.
Yeah, I mean, that's the original biohack, right? It's good for your endorphins, it's good for your mindset, it's good for your mood, it gets you started in the day, it makes you look better. It's an original biohack to go and move the body. It helps you breathe more. Breathing helps you process. It helps move fluids throughout the body. It moves all your fascia and wrings it out like a towel. So old water goes processing through the system while new water gets absorbed. But sometimes it's harder to sit still and to actually like try and find stillness. I notice that I move a lot. It's actually hard for me. I do it every single evening. I sit and I meditate. And a lot of people are like, oh, what kind of meditation? It's just like, I sit still and I breathe. It's no more complicated than that. I could bring mantra into it. I could, bring certain mudras. I could have a protocol to it. But oftentimes, try and just sit still for 20 minutes without moving. I mean, that's hard, let alone the thoughts in the mind and getting kind of drifting away with your thoughts. Whereas like, no, come back to the breath, or come back to the here and now. That's just a thought, let it pass. Besides that, just try and sit still with an erect spine without hunching over and shutting down or closing down your chest and your lungs. Try and do that for 20 minutes. You're going to get uncomfortable. It's going to feel physically painful. It's going to feel psychologically agonizing. It's going to be really difficult for most people just to hold good posture for 5 minutes. Most people, that's really difficult. So when I'm in agony, I find I use my intuition to locate, what do I really need? Do I need to slow down, or do I need to move this energy? That's a really good question to ask. Like, do I need to move more? Have I been sluggish? Do I need to get up and move this? Then yeah, maybe going out and working out or walking or doing a hike. Or is it more like, man, I'm on a hamster wheel. I need to slow down. I've noticed this, that when I really slow down, even if it's like I get really bad news, it reframes everything. Because everything that was top priority is now, it's down the list. I'm like, whoa, now I can see I could get that task done right now. I could get that task done right now because of the clarity that's in me. And that clarity does not come when I'm on the hamster wheel. It comes when life forces me to slow or slam to a halt. And then I get this clarity, and then it naturally organizes all my priorities, all the things that were confusing before. It brings things in perspective. And then sometimes it's really, it's more than just psychological. It's somatic, and it's emotional. And it's like, you know what, Ben, I'm not nurturing enough to myself. not just in the way that I feed myself and hydrate myself, but just appreciate where I've come in life. Appreciate that I am enough. And it might sound very self-helpy and Tony Robbins, but so many of us were overachievers because deep down inside, we need to be worthy. We need to feel like we belong. I was just watching this excellent series on Netflix. It's just one season. It's called Bodies, and it has to do with time travel. It's a head spin. It's really cool. But you realize that these characters throughout time, there's several time periods, like 1890 and then 1941, then 2023, and then 2049 or 2053. And they show you people that go through the same exact experience. And there's a little bit of woke stuff in there. It's not that I don't see that, but what's interesting is when they meet each other, they start traveling time and they meet each other, the same people that found the same body, the same like detective that found the same body throughout time, they meet each other. And one asks the other in the very last episode, why did you become a cop? And this person said, to belong. How about you? He said, to hide. Right? And that right there is ultimate clarity. Why do we do the things that we do? Why did we turn into the kind of person, or why did we choose the profession? In this story, it's really interesting because you can totally see all those things make sense now. That person has the clarity to say, oh, I did it to belong. That's deep. We want to belong. And sometimes we want to belong in a way where we need to be the outcast. That's how we belong to the group, is we're the outcast. We're the paranoid one, or we're the one who's super vigilant. We were the lookout in the tribe. We weren't the super socialite. We were the one always on the perimeter looking for danger. That's also belonging. A lot of us are looking for that, and some of us are looking to hide behind a role. And I think many of us have several of those things.
You were talking about like why we do the things we do, and I'm thinking about mind control. Like we were talking about angels and demons, and is there a spiritual, psychological war going on? I think a lot about parasites, literal parasites in the gut from the foods we eat, the pork and the sushi and God knows what, but like these parasites in our body that are like telling our nervous system, I require this thing to survive. And what it's translating is you being like, I could use one of those. I'm hungry for that thing. But it's like some control mechanism. And there are detoxes and stuff, but lately I've been like feeling death. It's been like, God, am I coming up on death? And like, it just feels like I don't know what's coming next. And I feel almost purposeless. Like I feel like I'm in a hamster wheel, like emanating some goodness with the Timcast IRL and the shows we're doing and like this show. But that like, I mean, and maybe that's enough. Maybe that's just the erosion that we need. But like, it feels like there could be so much more, like a big, like a linchpin moment or some huge transformation that could come. And I've got these parasites, and I'm looking at combo. Like you're probably familiar with psychedelics. I mean, I know you're familiar with psychedelics in general. And I've been looking like, where am I going? I don't know what's next. And I'm feeling drawn to ayahuasca and combo. And I'm told like, if you're going to do ayahuasca, you do combo first. This is in this realm of the people that I've been talking to, this is the mechanism. You get the combos, like where you take this toad venom and you burn it it's burned into your arm, and you have visceral puking, diarrhea, and like people puke up parasites and stuff. And and then the ayahuasca, like, I don't know. It's like either my body's going to die or my ego's going to die. I don't know. But what's your advice?
Well, what's interesting is my wife facilitates combo experiences. It's not illegal here. And and as far as ayahuasca, I started back in 2008. I think that if it's calling you, some beautiful insights and transformations will happen. I never suggest things like that because I feel like people are going to find it if they're going to find it, and trying to, coax people into doing something like that. Oftentimes I find that once they come face to face with their own shadow, they can externalize it, being like, that fucking Ben, like he made me do this. I'm never going to do this again. And they can, but if they say yes to it, if they know that they agreed to it, then when they come face to face with their shadow, there's a part of them that knows like, this is for your good. It's not pleasant, but you asked for this and you're getting it. Combo is a tree frog from South America, and they get the venom off of it, and they burn the top layer of the dermis, and they put the poison on there, and you start throwing up. It's not really psychedelic. It's head throbby. You purge a lot, and 3 times within the lunar cycle, and that's an inoculation. I think both of those are very potent, powerful, and they're initiation practices. They are rites of passage. I've seen a lot of people go down bad paths with them because they get stuck on the allure of the outer garment of them. Like, oh, I will become this way if I do that. Get rid of what you think you're going to become. You're going to be getting rid of shit. You're going to be not just puking it up physically, but you're literally going to be peeling back layers of who you thought you were. And that's maturity. It's not knowing more. It's really understanding that, knowing this idea that we can know things to be sure. You start peeling back the deceptions that we live under, the blank spots that our subconscious mind filled in for us. They become illuminated. So I would definitely say, if you're feeling the call for that, let's talk afterwards for sure. And when it comes to really just like understanding like the deeper things that are driving us, we're not really going to understand it if we're not doing things that challenge us. This is why I said doing the hard thing, doing the challenging thing, not looking for ease and convenience, but actually, looking for this is why people get into Brazilian jiu-jitsu. It's one of the most uncomfortable things to do. You're huffing and puffing and somebody's trying to strangle you at all moments. But what you learn is what you're capable of. You learn how you can actually breathe very calmly in a time of high stress where you're literally fighting for your life. If you don't put yourself into situations where you can surprise yourself with your power, then you're going to keep thinking you are who you've always been. And in some way, we remain children, and we just replace our physical parents with the state. And our states become the nanny, and they take care of us. They give us all the conveniences, and we just transfer being a child in an individual family with being a child of the state. When I think really hitting these existential points, like, why does somebody want to do ayahuasca? You hear the people who don't want to do it. They're like, why would you want to do that? You puke, you vomit, you might shit yourself, yada, yada. Like, yeah, and you might find yourself. Why would you want to climb Mount Everest? You could die. Why would you want to travel the world? The plane could crash, right? It's what is worth putting a little skin in the game. What's worth risking? Actually, if you look at the Flow Genome Project, they said that the flow state, like Michael Jordan, how he could like play so well, and afterwards he could be like, I barely remember what happened. Actually, I feel like the game took over and I just became the game, right? I merged with the field. What is that? Well, the Flow Genome Project says that the way to access that state repeatedly and reliably is to try a physical matched with a physical mental exercise that's challenging you 4% beyond your comfort level. So I trained with this guy, Rafe Kelly, and we were out in the woods and jumping from tree to tree. Now I can jump 5 feet. If you draw a line in the ground and draw another one 5 feet away, I can jump from line to line, no problem. My nerves aren't rattled at all. You put me up in a tree 20 feet off the ground, and I'm jumping the same distance, but from this branch to that branch, all of a sudden, what seemed super simple, I know my body can do it, but all of a sudden, all these alarm bells are going off inside me. Is that 4% beyond my comfort zone? Yeah, I'm in pretty good shape. I do stuff like this, so I'm going to go for it. And I jump and I make it. And then all of a sudden, what my body knew to be real is now real in a way that jumping 5 feet on the earth, on the ground, could never have taught me. At the end of the day, I just jumped 5 feet, right? It's the same thing, but you put skin in the game and you access a different part of who you are, and it's matched with gamma waves in the time of flow. And that's also, gamma waves are matched with aha moments, like when you really learn something new or something novel connects in your mind, lateral thinking, lateral processing. These things cause us to go into this like gamma state, and it's kind of like the flow state where, oh my God, it makes sense right now. And that's why I say, if you've been on the hamster wheel, slow down. If you have been sluggish, move your body. When you do the challenging thing that you haven't been doing, there's something about breaking out of your pattern that causes instantaneous clarity. In the here and now, you'd be like, oh shit, I don't know why, but I all of a sudden know what to do with my relationship with my loved ones. I know the direction I need to go in this film now. I know, like, I really need to start focusing on my diet more. Why is this all downloading in a moment where I got sick and I can't move? It's because our patterns, we impose our own blockages. We stop our ascent into our higher selves.
What is it?
So I mean, real quick, just to get back to what you were saying, feeling compelled to do things like ayahuasca and combo aren't just the thing. It's not just ayahuasca and combo. You're compelled. I feel it in you, because I feel the same thing when you feel death creeping. I don't know if this is existential. I don't know if it's psychosomatic. I don't know if it's real, but I feel that there is an impasse, that I must destroy this holy altar. There's a dogma. There's this limiting belief that I don't even know how to see it, because it's the very eyes I'm seeing through. I need to destroy it, and something needs to stop me before I can say, like, oh shit, yeah. And then all of a sudden, all your priorities just click into place. Ultimate clarity.
I had an experience like this in 2018. I was living in Los Angeles, working from home, smoking a lot of weed, just day after day after day. And I started to feel death coming. I was like, North Korea is going to nuke Los Angeles. This feels really bad right now. And I just went to South America. I was like, my friends in South America, Zena Radner, she's cleaning up the trash out of the Amazon River, out of the Ataya. She's rallied a community. I had Bitcoin money. I was like, let's go fund this excursion. I just did something. It wasn't even scary. It was just something I was unfamiliar with that it gave me purpose. And all of a sudden, all those feelings dissipated into the background as if they never were. I remember it, like the fear, that feeling that death was creeping, but it completely vanished while I was down there. And it wasn't even like a super successful experience. I was still like not my best self. Things could have, it was a weird time. Like the government, the president, like resigned for corruption. It felt very dangerous. So I kind of was like, I'm out of here. But
Purpose.
it solved something. It solved that death encroaching. And maybe that's just what it takes is some like Aubrey Marcus. You work with Aubrey Marcus pretty intimately. I know you've done his film In the Dark. What was the name of that, where he was in the dark for 7 days or something? Like,
yeah, it was called Awake in the Darkness.
And he just endogenous DMT. He was like going into psychedelic flow states and stuff. I mean, that's powerful. I listened to him talk about combo once, and he was like, fuck that shit, dude. I took that and it was hell on earth. I saw the toad mock, like, this is what you get, you son of a bitch, for using me, for using my venom. Now suffer. And that kind of thing. And I was like, whoa, I'm never touching that. But the people around me that I trust are saying you should do it. So I'm getting like kind of unwiring that fear from that. Just, it's one Aubrey interview that I heard, and maybe he's had other experiences with it that have been totally life transforming in a good way as well. And I don't expect it to be easy, but I think not to put too much weight on that one interview he did about it, and just allow the pain.
Yeah. I mean, I think you really hit the nail on the head when you were saying, like, there's fears and anxieties and things that were kind of impressing themselves upon you, and then you go down to South America with a sense of purpose, and all those things dissipate. There's such a clue in that when we don't feel purpose, all these other things have space and bandwidth to start, and it's just by happenstance we start getting filled with these things that are there to push us into motion. So we may, eventually start to feel a little bit more purpose. I remember it's interesting how purpose allows us to feel and sense the clarity of all the other parts of our life. Like, I think it was in World War II, it might have been Dresden in Germany, and the whole city was bombed to hell. And then all of a sudden, all the psych wards, they just let everybody out, because everybody, I'll oversimplify it here, everybody seemed to not be insane anymore because they had purpose. We need to go help. We need to go feed people. We need to go help clean up this city. They had a purpose. And I'm not going to say like I know I was there, I saw, but how it comes to me from the story is that they were all let out. And they were all let out because it was obvious. They had an intelligent organizing force within them called purpose. Some would say, oh, it's God, you know, and they were psychotic when God left them, and, you know, they returned to God. But, you know, again, these are just terms, but imagine that. I've noticed this in the past. So my grandmother on my mom's side was dying. And she was in and out of being loopy and then coherent, loopy, coherent. And she woke up one time and my mom was sitting by her bedside. My mom was just crying. And even though my grandmother was like dying and in pain, she sat up and looked at my mom and was like, oh, honey, what's the matter? And she held my mom and was consoling my mom, even though my mom was crying about the pain that she was in. And imagine that. Like, I've noticed this even with my mom and other people. You're in a world of like your own misery and pain, and it's almost like you have Velcro on the back of your hand to your forehead, like it's this woe is me thing. Then all of a sudden somebody gets hit by a car and you snap out of your depression, your anxiety, and you're like in either fix it mode or go mode or somebody needs me mode. I am needed. I belong now. There's a moment in the here and now that calls upon my gifts and my belonging. And all that other shit, the psychosis, the fears, the anxiety, the existential angst of what am I doing with my life, all goes out the window because somebody needs help. That's interesting. And you can do that with yourself too. I need help. Now I finally get it. There's things I don't know if combo is going to help. I don't know if ayahuasca is going to help, but I know what's not going to help. Just not doing anything out of the ordinary. That's not going to help. Not challenging myself. That's not going to help. So, I mean, in a way, it's our ability to say yes to things that we wouldn't have said yes to before that really broaden our horizons and allow us to understand purpose on a deeper level.
I get concerned about people creating that like somebody needs me purpose by inducing trauma on a system so that whether it's a relationship or an entire world, so that they are needed. And then they're like, create the problem, I am the solution. I don't know where that phenomenon comes from, or even the desire. That's probably psychotic. I mean, maybe you could argue that's psychotic if that word even has a coherent definition. I don't know, but like, obviously, I don't think it would be right or good or just or benevolent to induce trauma on someone to become the purposeful solution. Right. And like, so to avoid that, is it that I wonder if it's like, do people need to induce trauma on themselves in order to overcome their own trauma? I mean, literally working out is like traumatizing your muscles so that you can recover and become a better person. But but what I don't want to do is like hurt myself emotionally so that I guess this is why I'm like, I feel aimless in a lot of ways. And maybe that's why I don't know why I'm drawn to the psychedelics. I have been for a long time. And maybe now it's just like, I think I'm interested in the stripping away of this stuff.
Yeah. Aimlessness. I mean, I know that very well. You know, I'm not going to say I'm in the thick of it right now, but I've just recently come through a big stretch of this existential, what am I doing? Like, I love what I'm doing, but is it all? And I think these questions come to us, you know, we could stand as a species to listen to our intuition more. I think we disregard our intuition. And the spontaneity that comes from like, you know, what am I doing with my life? I should do something new. Yeah, but it's easier to just slip back into my patterns. That's kind of exactly what I'm talking about. And the point that we don't really know where the path is supposed to throw us. So really it's about understanding how to take the first step out of where we're at. And ayahuasca could be that. Saying yes to a new job or a move, a big move, or, you know, saying no when it's very difficult for us to say no, standing up for ourselves in ways that we haven't in the past. Like, we know that's not going to solve the problem, but we know it's stepping in the right direction. And oftentimes we think being a different person or being more enlightened or being at a different place in life, proverbially, is going to solve it, when really it's the path there. If you think about it, that's the process by which we change into the person that makes us who we are when we get there. So taking those steps are really what it calls for. It's like when I make a film, I try not to hyper visualize what the end product is going to be, because I want to listen to the film as I'm making it, and it'll tell me like, no, you thought the film was going to be this, didn't you? Yeah, I know, but it's actually this. It's moving in this direction. And that way I have a relationship with the film, and it's teaching me along the way, this is what culture wants. This is what your soul wants to express. And again, it's probably not about figuring ourselves out as much as it is challenging the sacred roles that we dare not challenge, right? Those things that we think we are, those things that we think define us, challenge them. Like, what's the worst that can happen? Challenge it. Yeah, I think I'm a filmmaker, okay, but what if I paint? Challenge it. It's like, yeah, but I might look stupid. My first painting might be dumb. Well, how did you do it when you made your first song and got up on stage and sang it? How'd you do it when you made your first film and put it out there for millions of people to see? You were a beginner. You always start there. But is it about how you cash in on it? Are you doing this so you can get more people to like what you do? Or are you really trying to challenge who you are so you better understand what your purpose even is? I think people are a lot more attracted to a person who knows their passion than a person who's wildly successful. Because there are wildly successful people, Robin Williams being one of them, who maybe he found his purpose and his passion. And, maybe you could say he lived a good life and he just had a moment at the end of his life. Some people could put conspiracy on top of it. But being wildly successful does not mean you're in touch with your passion, your real purpose. And I'm not even sure saying real purpose even defines it, because many of us think like, what does that mean? Oh, it's this category. I got to find this one thing. No, it's getting rid of the shit we think we are that we're not. I mean, so much of what I see people doing is trying to arrive somewhere, when really it's like, how are you walking the path?
That's actually very, very helpful. Talking about the steps, just take the first step towards where you're going, and then the next step will become apparent. I think we have some super chats I wanted to bring up also. The Indian Jesus came in hot. No matter what we believe, values matter more. Hope you've been in better spirits than you have been recently, brother. Oh, thank you.
Values, man.
Yeah, that's, I guess, like a compass. Values are like a compass.
Hey, man, I still got some time, but I got to take a quick piss.
Hey, yeah, go for it.
All right.
Let's help. I think that lately I've been doing a lot of meditation, or at least attempting to do a lot of meditation, and because I'm feeling pretty lost. I don't like to put negative energy out into the world, but also I like to be honest. And like, being honest doesn't mean I have to go flip on a video camera and record everything I'm thinking or feeling, because I'm not going to feel lost in the future. And I haven't always felt lost, and I've gone through phases of feeling lost, but I guess, being open to my imperfection and allowing people to know that I'm spiraling into the abyss in a certain way. There's a lot going on in the world. Sometimes just looking at a TV screen's a little much. Taking in information against my will, like what's going on Twitter today. Let's indoctrinate myself with some more fear propaganda or whatever it is. It's a little much. Oh, Ben's back already. What's happening? I was just talking about fear. I was talking about acknowledging that I'm feeling lost to the public, and how like just being honest doesn't mean that you have to say everything you're feeling to the world. So like, that's what therapists are for. Hey, by the way, what do you think about paying for a therapist that is just some normie therapist and then going and talking to them?
If you would ask me 3 months ago, I would have said, I don't see the point. Nowadays, I mean, like, I think give it a shot and see what hits. Again, it's like it's to each their own. But for me, a couple months ago, I would have said, I don't see the point. And now I'd be like, yeah, honestly, they're trained to know how to listen and respond. And even though we're dealing more with intellectual verbal content, they're still paying attention to the cues, the subconscious cues. So I think there's something there. When you said like looking at Twitter and everything, it really made me think like I have like 3-4 podcasts I listen to religiously. Listen to a lot of Glenn Greenwald. I listen to a lot of Redacted with Clayton and Natalie Morris. I listen to a lot of Ezra Klein. And I noticed that the way they select information and the way they express their information every day, something super urgent is happening in the world. And it is interesting when you take a step back from that and you see like, what is that doing? Almost like a kind of food that you eat every day for years and you don't really experience the effects that it will eventually have on you at some point. It's the same thing with how we feed our minds daily. Like I'm watching, I'm listening to Redacted, and like I said, millions of migrants pouring over the Texas border, or what's going on with Zelensky, what's going on in Israel and Gaza, and there's always something to tantalize our amygdala, and it's like, do we know how to step away from that? Do we know how to augment what information and impressions arrive at us? And for me, the hardest thing is like, I love informing myself about what's going on in the world. But oftentimes it just builds this kind of tunnel vision to where that's how I see the world. And I'm not listening to enough artists that are doing things just because they're fun. Or like my wife loves watching chefs on Instagram make these beautiful cakes and stuff like that. Sometimes
Side surf. Yeah. Oh, sorry. I don't know. Side surf cakes. They're great. They're friends of mine. They're going to send me some stuff.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, they're great.
It's so important to see those things that seem like, if you're watching the news all the time, like, I don't have time for cakes. What are you kidding me? Cakes? Like there's all these things happening in the world. When at the end of the day, it's just like, it's hard for me to know what's good for me right now. If I've been eating this kind of food for years and years and years, I may be deficient in this. Like I've been watching Redacted, listening to Redacted for years. Like maybe I need some cake videos. Maybe I need to watch more parkour videos or play more music, express myself in a different way. And that will call my body to call in different kinds of nourishment. Like, Ben, stop watching the news, start like getting out and just playing the guitar, or like, jamming with friends and things like that. There's a lot of importance.
I love the esoteric conquest. I'm big in like meditation and being still and like allowing things to pass through me, but I'm also like acutely tuned into geopolitics. And I keep getting this image of Einstein fleeing Nazi Germany in the early days. Like he saw the writing on the wall, and I'm like, should I just go to El Salvador? Like it's I keep seeing it. I know people there. It seems inviting. I'm like, I don't want to flee. I don't want to flee. I want to go somewhere and build something. But
yeah. I've been thinking Costa Rica. Dude, I see the same writing on the wall. It's wild because whereas there is no outrunning it, there may be temporarily outrunning it, but whatever's happening is happening. But, like when you say it, there's the big thing that's happening. And then there's like what might happen to the United States in the next 10, 15 years. I was just releasing this thing about how in the 90s, Catherine Austin Fitts worked under George Herbert Walker Bush. She worked in HUD, urban housing and stuff like that, affordable housing. And she was getting insider information saying the United States is done for. We're going to start siphoning massive amounts of money and assets out of the country. And the public will only see it as a bunch of crises, that cause for hyperinflation of the dollar. We're not at hyperinflation yet, but like, I've thought about these things. I'm like, what's the worst that can happen? What's the best that can happen? And what's just likely to happen if the United States is not the superpower in the next 10 to 15 years, right? Great Britain, after a certain point, wasn't the superpower. But what happened after that? Did they just get wiped off? Are they a third world country? No. And actually, throughout the 60s and 70s, and even beyond that, their populace was putting out some of the most amazing music in the world. Some of the most amazing music in the world was coming out of this empire that eventually became number 2, number 3, whatever. So could that happen to the United States? Yeah, maybe we won't be the number 1 biggest dingling on the playground, but at the end of the day, Are we still going to be a country where you can pursue your arts, your crafts, you can, become who like get in touch with your purpose, raise your family, whatever you want to do? Is this going to be a country where you can still do that? Sure. Are we vastly rich in resources? Yeah. Can you go from East Coast to West Coast and see just about almost every single kind of like weather pattern and geographical kind of like climate? Yeah. You can see the mountains to the coastline, from the redwoods to the desert, all the way to the plains, the rolling hills, from tropical sunny beaches down in Florida all the way up to Maine. You can get a lot. And if we're not the number one superpower anymore, it's only slightly scary, because what does that mean? Who have we been on the playground? How have we treated the world lately? Not just, through war technology, but financial technology and oppression. How are those chickens going to come home to roost? Man, I think about this all the time. And honestly, like I'm not off grid, but I'm sufficient enough to know that if Leave the World Behind is predictive of 2024, and there is a cyber attack coming, and supply chains are going to shut down, I know that I've done a lot. Maybe not all that I can, but I know that I've done a lot to make sure that me and my family are okay and we can survive a couple months until things calm down. Because crises like that, if a lot of people are going to die, they're going to die within days and weeks of a major crisis. They're not going to keep dying in droves months and months later, depending on the exact crisis. So for me, I've been thinking about Costa Rica. Where else would I go? It's hard, but I don't think we're here on planet Earth to deal with the mundane and the easy things. I think that we really find who we are by being challenged with these big existential questions. Is the country that I'm living in going to round me up and put me into a camp?
Yeah, you talk about the United States and the evolution of what we're going to see in the next 15 years, which is its own conversation. And then the greater, valence of what's going on, which is this global governance. The new world, the liberal economic order is turning into a new world, or like the world order now. So they want to build a world order. People want to build a world order. A lot of like World Economic Forum talks a lot about the world order. Do you think that the technocratic world order is inevitable?
Yeah, I think in some way, shape, or form, it's going to come to pass. I do. I don't think it's going to be the dystopian nightmare that many people say it's going to be. Although I applaud those who talk about the slippery slope that we're on. I think there's a very important societal role to play when you're warning people of what's going down. But I do think that there are enough good people in high places that what's going to happen is there's going to be a place. It's not just going to be the 1% versus the 99%. There's still going to be a spectrum. Your talents are still going to be needed. Entertainment, even, is going to be very important in this world to come. It's not like we're just going to be put into a prison. But we are moving in this globalist direction where private corporate interests are having much more influence than they ever have. They're not just nation states anymore that cooperate with one another. They're small cohorts of people in revolving doors between high offices. And it's very incestuous at the top. You see the same names hopping from, like, let's say, a tech to a pharma company CEO to a regulatory agency within the government, or whatever it might be. You see a lot of the same people hopping around up there. So there really is that kind of new world order thing. But I feel like it's more about experimentation as well. Like, if you listen to Alison McDowell, I think what the smart cities of the future are going to be are experiment hubs, like petri dishes. And she even says that decentralization is the actual push, is to push it in these ways where AI runs a lot of the smart cities in China, like Alibaba controls the traffic and stuff. And it does more than just that. But imagine you have AI, not even humans, you have policy and stuff like that, but you have AI kind of creating, this is what Alison McDowell says, creating micro crises in certain areas and studying the impact on the collective to better understand how collective psychology works and how independent agents who are a little bit more rogue, how that influences the whole. And it's going to be this decentralized thing. And she even says, like, we are inevitably moving in a direction of Bitcoin and Ethereum. And whether it's anonymous, whether it's completely decentralized, we don't know. But the whole idea that decentralization is going to liberate us, Alison McDowell has a different way of looking at that. And that's wrenchinthegears.com. Or you can go and find Alison McDowell on YouTube. Her videos are like 3 hours long and they are super heady. So, be forewarned. But I definitely see that we don't fully know what the world is and the future's not written. And it's not even fully to be written by us. It's going to be written by our children. So in many ways, I'm here. My way of answering back to this new world order, this globalist kind of agenda that's definitely developing across the world, my way of answering that call is by really being an example for my children, because that's going to ripple out into their friend group, the way they problem solve, the way they balance their nervous system in a time of stress. All those little things are going to matter for them and what they do in this world. So it's where the microcosm meets the macrocosm. When you're looking at this macrocosm, dude, the world, like, I don't know, man, are we about to enter World War III and all that stuff? And then I go walk over to my kids and they're playing with Legos. It puts it into perspective. Like, okay, Ben, all this stuff is rattling through your head. You're wondering if you should buy more survival food and a generator and a wood oven if we're disconnected from the grid and we need to heat the house. You're dealing with all this and financial matters, and your kids, they want to see that you're in a balanced nervous system and you're in play mode, So it's like, whoa, I get what my role is, because it's a balance between the macro and the micro. How do I balance that? That decision, my feeling state in the moment, there's no justification for me walking home and screaming at my kids because the World Economic Forum is doing something, right? If I don't know how to get that right, then I'm an imbalanced person. So I think that's what we are learning. And now more and more people are listening to news on the daily. There's more people becoming educated, and it's triggering them, and it's pushing them into silos of dogmatic thought patterns. And at the same time, perhaps we need to go through this. Perhaps we need to go through this panic, this existential angst, where most of us are waking up the horrors that have always been around, but we didn't understand the complexity and the all-pervasiveness of it. And now we're starting to understand that. So there's going to be this reaction, like when you just find out your lover's been cheating on you or your best friend just died. There's an instantaneous physiological thing that happens, and it changes your entire world, everything about it. But it's how you move through these moments with grace that I think have the biggest imprint and impact upon the world. That's who we really become. That's the us that will live on beyond our body. So to me, it's really understanding how to balance the macrocosm and the microcosm in the here and now. And that's where purpose is born. I really do believe it.
I fully failed at that over the last 2 years. It was like just I allowed the outer realm to annihilate my personal relationships. Like it was really, really sad. But like you're saying, it's like, so that happened, and now the key is to move through it with grace, to find a balance, to not make the mistake again, to figure out. I guess it's meditation. People were like, I'm like, I don't know if my mind can handle these, like talking about World War III every night, or 4 nights a week or 2 nights a week. And I want to run away. Like my body wants to disengage from it, but they're like, meditation. If you can leave the show, like we do it on TV with me and Tim, go in like some of the darkest global news. And like, it's just meditate. If you can meditate afterwards and your nervous system cools, then maybe that's how to handle this kind of realm.
Yeah, being honest with the fact that all you're doing is illuminating what's already there, and you're also putting spin on it. So you're letting it merge and assimilate with your worldview. all the news that you're reading, you're letting it assimilate, inform, and fuse with your worldview. So as you're learning about what the world actually is, like how many people in the 1700s knew that there was like, you know, how all pervasive sex trafficking has been. It's one of the oldest industries, you know. Nowadays we know about it a lot more. It's pumped into our it's sprayed at our face. But I mean, to me, is like, how do you leave these weekly conversations of World War III and how things are going to hell in a handbasket? Is not run away from it, but bring a different you to it. Like, okay, that's happening. And that is informing my worldview. But at the end of the day, does it have to mean that I'm a different person? Like, if you've seen the Titanic and that band that's playing on the Titanic at the end, and the ship is going down, and they're all like, well, I guess this is it. And they were all just going to disband, if you will, forgive the pun. And the violinist just started playing again. And the rest of the band just realized, we're about to die. What do we want to do as we're about to die? And they come back and they start playing music. One of the most trivial things you could probably imagine, but is it trivial? Like, that's what we think. Like, what am I supposed to do about the World Economic Forum? I'm just one person. Well, I'll tell you what I don't think you're supposed to be doing is disempowering yourself into believing that the way that you receive this information and take it home to your family, that it doesn't matter because you're just 1 in 8 billion people. I think it does matter how you know, like, bring the best you, the most graceful you. The ship, maybe the Titanic is sinking, and maybe we're just here to make beautiful music as it's going down, to be an example for others who are in panic mode, to be like, okay, the ship is sinking. That may or may not mean certain doom. But what do I do? How do I be right now? Do I let the wave or the moment take me over, or do I surf the wave? Meaning, I'm not controlling the wave. I'm manipulating it just enough to where I don't get swallowed by it. That to me is that band on the Titanic deciding, no, if I'm going to go down, I'm going to do it doing what I was put on this earth to do. So it's also conjuring the confidence. Like, if we're kids and I'm like, hey, you play a robber and I'll play a policeman, right? You could conjure that. You'd be like, okay, I'm going to be the bad guy. And, you know, what does the bad guy say? What does he do? How does he act? How does he act when he's just around his own family? Is he all bad? You know, all that kind of stuff. And to me, we're older now. Most of us don't do that role-playing thing. But if I were to tell you, you know what, for the next 30 minutes or just the next 5 minutes, let's role play. You're super confident and you're super balanced and grounded in your nervous system. All the things that are coming to you, like, yeah, you know, like, I see that too. Yeah, I understand. You know what I do? You know, like, you could pretend, and in that pretending, you could conjure confidence. How do we do that? Well, we're powerful. We're stuck in our patterns. So here's one other example to drive that home. Posture creates hormones in our body. If I were to smile as authentically as I possibly can, that'll create new hormones in my body. Nicole Kidman, actress, she was going to play a role, and I think she got, and this is the same with a bunch of different actresses, they got Botox. And Botox temporarily kind of paralyzes the face, the muscles in the face, by which we emote, by which we show our emotions to the outside world. But paralyzing it, meaning we can't emote anymore, cause for their depression and their anxiety to go away. There's a feedback in the opposite direction. If you can't emote with this droopy, dreary, gloomy face, it actually feeds back and you stop feeling those feelings. Now, imagine that. You can conjure that on command if you focus more on what is my feeling state? How do I conjure the feeling state? I can't control the outer world. I've come to find that out. That's what people call magic, right? Controlling the outside world through means that the mechanisms are unknown. But in a way, if you change yourself and you change your worldview, then somebody could see you playing music on the Titanic that's going down, and that can change them in an instant. That could show them that I do have agency. I'm not just being thrown around by this wave. I do have something I can do. And it may seem insignificant and meaningless. I'm still going to die. But you know what? I'm going to die the way I'm going to die. I'm going to go down on this ship exactly how I choose. I'm going to cultivate that confidence. I know I have purpose as long as I conjure it. You know, I think that's really the thing that most people are missing, is they think there's some formula they need to attach themselves to, or a right action. Oh, I need to do this. That'll be right. That'll be good. That'll set me on the right path. It's less about the external appearance of it and more about the feeling state that you can conjure in the moment. To me, I think the ship is kind of sinking, and it's not going to kill everybody. I think we may experience what the news will call World War III. And I think a lot of it's going to be fear mongering. And there's really just, in crisis moment, a lot of the powers that be are just rallying for policy to change so they can monopolize the next world order. You know, do they want everyone to die? Are they twisting their mustaches? Probably not. They're probably just trying to get what they want for them. You know, but so what do? This 1 in 8 billion people. You cultivate the you that you know you were born to cultivate. Despite all of it.
Do you drink a lot of coffee?
No.
You talk about like controlling your emotional state when hearing things, and I wonder if the adrenals, like the caffeine, is detrimental to people's ability to stay calm in the face of bad news.
Yeah, you know, I would say yes, very much so. But you know, I know people that are yogis, and they wake up and they do 2 to 3 cups of coffee before doing yoga, and they are chill, they are grounded. Some people are wired, you know, but I think it actually has to do more, and I really mean this, with how aware your breaths are. If you can go through challenging moments, even sitting in the car, and like part of it is posture. You know, when you're in the car, are you constantly slouching? Are you aware of your posture at all? And then just breathing. Can you breathe naturally when you're in this kind of posture? Can you breathe without, I think a lot of the times people feel panic because we have terrible posture. We're not breathing. You know, like the hyperkyphosis that most of us have because we're sitting all the time causes for a reduction in our lung capacity up to 30%, as opposed to people who have really good posture. 30%. Imagine 30% less oxygen. And who knows if that means that your lungs are less able to do with the oxygen that it does even get. So imagine you're almost slowly suffocating. You're not going to die immediately, but you're getting a third less oxygen. That's got to lead to some panic, you know? And I've seen people, caffeine, some people it really affects them, some people it doesn't affect them. So I'm not going to say it's just breathing. Yes, it also has to do with your diet. It also has to do with your hydration. It has to do with your worldview. It has to do with radiation and all those little things. But I really feel like we're so powerful as human beings that if you get a really good night's sleep that's restorative, you're going to feel good the next day, you know? And if you know how to, and I'm not saying like an Eckhart Tolle, like, you know, every breath must be super conscious. Like, no, just like, is your breathing super interrupted? Are you breathing super shallow? Are you always at the top of your breath, which people who are highly agitated and their nervous systems are on edge, they're at the top of their breath. They're never fully exhaling, you know? And there's something about if you're at the bottom of your breath, you're more lethargic, depression, kind of like the lows. Really having a relationship with your breath, I think is going to help you more than trying to figure out whether caffeine is the culprit.
Like getting enough oxygen is huge. Also, releasing enough carbon dioxide, because like I'll notice when I breathe out, there's almost always more air to breathe out. So like I breathe out, and I can breathe out more from here. Like that's a lot of air that I didn't even realize was in there. A lot of carbon dioxide that was just hanging out. And then there's new room.
Yoga, there's actually like, it's called the emptying the breath. And then like once you completely blow out as much as you possibly can, you hold, and then you lift up your diaphragm so your stomach is really tiny because you've blown out all the air. And there's actually massages that you can do in that state when you completely collapse the lungs. You open up the diaphragm so your abs you can get in there and kind of move stuff around. There's actually interesting techniques about that. Most people don't ever get to the bottom of their breath. More people get to the top of their breath than they do the bottom of their breath. And I think a really balanced nervous system is somebody who they have the capacity to open up the intercostal muscles in between the ribs and really get a full breath. Because what does that feel like? Well, I mean, evolutionarily, when you see somebody like, what does that look like? It could either be anxiety, like I'm about to snap, or it could be like, oh, yes, it's a yes to life. And the bottom of your breath, where you can't even really get it up to halfway, is, oh, that person is lacking. They don't even have the spirit of life isn't calling them enough to really get them, to take a full breath. So really just focusing on the breath, there's a whole world of nuance in that, and understanding the speed at which we breathe. Because a lot of us, when we're nervous, we require more oxygen and we're more shallow in our breathing. And it's interrupted. It's not smooth and slow and flowy. So I've noticed that when I'm in challenging conversations or whatever it might be, slow down my breathing. You don't actually need as much oxygen as you think you do. And if you slow down your breathing, you can really come to that understanding. And when you slow down your breathing, it's almost like you're slowing down time. So you have more time to process what you just heard. Now take a look at most conversations. People are talking over one another. They're not even waiting for the other to finish their sentence before they hop in. And the Native Americans, at least the Lakota, when they would sit in council, it was rude to speak without taking one full breath first after somebody finished talking. So taking that breath before hopping in showed, I heard you, and I'm going to take a full breath in and out, which shows one full cycle. I take it all in and I let it settle, even just for one breath. And now I'm going to respond. There's something to that, slowing down your breath and being mindful, especially in challenging situations.
I've noticed that what you had mentioned, I don't feel like I need to take in as much oxygen as I put out carbon dioxide, as if I'm getting oxygen through more than just my breathing. Like it's porously going through my skin, and like, so I'll breathe in a little, but then I can breathe out a lot. I can breathe out more. And also when it comes to the speed of breath is like, I want to make sure that when I breathe in, that air is actually converting to carbon dioxide before I breathe it out. So it's coming out hot. If it's coming out at the same temperature it went in, I don't feel like it's being utilized.
Yeah. And also pay attention to where around your lungs, what muscles in your stomach or your chest or your back feels like they're stuck, and really breathe into those areas. Because a lot of what breath is also doing is it's what helps that, and movement helps move lymph throughout the body. But it's also just like there's a metaphorical side to it. Like, how open are you? How stuck and rigid are you? Are you forcing the breath? Is the breath holistic, or is it just opening up the front of your chest, not your back? Is it, do you barely see any movement? Is it all going into your chest or your traps and your lats and things like that? Or are you breathing down into your belly? Where are you holding tension? So like the combination of being aware of your breath and where tension is in your body is, I would hazard to say, even though it's oversimplifying it, that is the core of all yoga and yogic type exercises, is really understanding where you're holding tension. Tension is not a bad thing as long as you're aware of the tension, because once you're aware of it, you know if it's serving you or not. And if you can be aware of your breath and the speed and the flow by which you're breathing, that's how you subconsciously process how you're doing. I notice that sometimes if I'm driving and I start getting in my head and I start bitching and griping in my head about something, I notice that I'm holding and I'm tightening and I'm not comfortable the way that I'm sitting, but I'm translating that feeling state as the things that I'm conjuring with my mind, like what that person said that upset me, or what, this situation that I can't seem to ever get out of, but I'm feeling in this, like it's part of my body. I'm not conscious with my breathing. My breathing is interrupted and I'm holding tension somewhere and it's annoying me, but I'm not conscious of the physiological felt experience of it. I'm more conscious of the mental experience of how it connects to the outer world. So there's something in that, whether it's the World Economic Forum or your lover or existential angst. Check in with where there's tension in your body and how your breath is doing. It's almost a universal barometer.
I'm going to pull up some super chats. We have some more here. This is from Slow Biden. I have a question for Ben. What can I expect from your website membership? Life coaching type stuff? Love your docs. Ungrip, Esoteric, Agenda, and Kymatica. I do too. Yeah, what do you got going on?
Yeah, so on the website, benjosephstewart.com, you can sign up and become a member. Right now there's two categories, and this will expand, but there's deeper dives and then there's awakening protocols. People usually, the audience helped kind of like figure out these two categories for me. I get into limitless type stuff where I'm talking about people's potential, their higher potential. And then I also get into, some would say just conspiracy, but I talk about the world and the news and I process it and I give it to people. The deeper dives are what I can't share on YouTube. And the awakening protocols are things that are more about like protocols by which we can process information. It's not information heavy. It's more or less, how do we access our breath? How do we understand how our worldview limits us? It's more about human potential. So those are the two categories. It's kind of deeper dives and awakening protocols. That's what you can expect. Every single week, there's a 30-minute episode that I put out there. And that's what you can expect. And then I send out an email just to make sure everyone knows when it's launched. And I also do have all my most of my documentaries. Some of them are owned by other people, but I have most of my content there, and you can go and watch through all of that. As of right now, there isn't much of a difference between the tiers. If you get a lower tier or a higher tier, that's just, it's now more or less, how do you want to support me? Do you want to support me with a higher tier or a lower tier? Eventually, I do want there to be more inner circles where they're more like think tanks, and that's what the higher tiers will be. But Slow Biden, that's what you can expect. If the life coaching stuff, you can sign up for life coaching, but I don't do the Tony Robbins type thing. We really kind of establish kind of a rapport between one another, and I help you see what I start to notice in you, as far as where there may be stuck points or where your passion is leading you, that kind of stuff. But that's separate from if you were to sign up and get a membership. If you do sign up for the $50 a month option, that's where we get a call. We get it like an hour to an hour and a half long call. And that can kind of just set up a little rapport between us. So I have a name and a face basis with you. And if you need to reach out at any time with advice or whatever, it kind of opens up that channel for you. But I appreciate you loving Ungrip, Esoteric, Agenda, and Kymatica. Those are my babies.
It's benjosephstewart.com.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, Slow Biden came in again. I also want to ask Ben if in his website membership, he does like tutoring on spiritual stuff like astral projection and stuff like that. Much love.
Yeah. I mean, so as I said, if you were to sign up and become a member, I have very close people in the memberships that ask me, like, Ben, can you do an episode about this? Can you do an episode about that? Like, fear of moving forward in life and blah, blah, blah. And I can do an episode. But if you're looking for tutoring or coaching in that kind of respect for astral projection or anything that has to do with hermeticism, alchemy, understanding thyself, there are formulas to awakening, even though they're debated amongst different groups. There are formulas to awakening. So that coaching comes more in the form of hiring me to be a coach. And if you want, just email me at ben@benjosephstewart.com, and we can figure out what's best for you. I appreciate it, Slow Biden.
All right. And then we have one here from Brewmaster Monk says, if we lose top spot, we will be eating kebabs made of little girls, and people will be debating if we should be putting GPS in knives just like the UK. Saying if the United States loses its top spot as the geopolitical nightmare, police force. Well, that's an interesting concept.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, like, I'm not sure the exact nuance between what's intentionally facetious or hyperbolic here, but believe me, nothing surprises me. I mean, like if we lose top spot, I think maybe whoever takes number one spot will virtue signal to the rest of the world by teaching us a public lesson somehow. I don't know what that would mean. I think the best lesson the next number one could teach us is that this dick measuring contest is over, that actually compassion, forgiveness, collaborative ways to move forward, that would be an amazing example. If there was whatever, a leader of the free world from another country that's like, we need to heal from a lot of the stupid, racial and, bigoted type stuff of the past. We need to heal from this. We need to do, we need to stop worrying so much about the growth of our economy and really more about the real growth of the individuals that make up humanity. So I think that would be the coolest gesture any next superpower could do, is show us how it's supposed to be done. The United States, for all the great high lofty dreams of the enlightened democracy we are supposed to be, after the Bretton Woods conference and our global dollar hegemony, I think we failed at being a real moral and ethical leader. We failed at it. We were deceptive. We even lied to our own people for not just the benefit of our country, but the benefit of a few. We need a better example. And I think that's why we do still have this hierarchical idea of a president or a king or a prime minister. Is we need somebody to show us what a human looks like, fully embodied in a higher ideology that transcends all the stupid bullshit that we get wrapped up in. So I hope we're not eating kebabs made of little girls.
Yeah, me too. Ben, this has been really good, man. It's really good to see you, brother.
You as well, man.
Yeah, we should do it again.
Let's do it. Let's make it a regular.
All right, I think this is it for today, dude. Everyone that's watching, like the video, share it with your friends and relatives and loved ones, and subscribe also and follow more. And Ben Joseph Stewart, benjosephstewart.com. A lot of the links, if you're watching on YouTube, will be in the description. But Ben, you can find them all over the place. benjosephstewart.com, I think, will get you to probably a portal to all your social media as well.
Yeah, and definitely find me on Instagram. I'm super slow on X. I'm slow on everything except Instagram, really.
And there you Ben Joseph Stewart on Instagram as well.
It's either that or Ben Stewart Dali, DAHLI. But yeah, I mean, if you go to benjosephstewart.com, you'll find at the bottom it has all the socials links.
Awesome, man. Well, invigorating conversation. Really good to see you again.
Yeah, you too, man. Let's do it again.
You got it.
Connect with me afterwards about some combo and plant medicine stuff.
Sounds delicious. All right, man. Bye, everyone.